Welcome to the Celtics Journal Podcast, your weekly Boston Celtics podcast. I'm your host, Adam Kemp, and I'm here with Geoff Kidger, as always. How we doing, Geoff?
I'm doing great. It's a good week. It's great to have you back. How you doing?
It's good to be back. I'm sorry I missed last week's show, but I heard the show. I love the conversation. I really like the Knicks slander, even though they're above us right now in the standings. It's always nice to hear some Knicks slander.
Yeah, it's not looking as good right now, but it felt good to say. It needed to be said.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a lot to talk about, a lot to complain about too, with a couple losses this week to the Thunder and then the Blazers last night, which we'll definitely talk about because there's a lot to unfold there. And we're also going to talk about our MVP of the week, and then we're also going to talk about Mike Gorman and what he had to say about the Jays' leadership. And then we're going to look ahead to the Magic, Bulls, and Heat this week and give you guys our final thoughts. So let's get started. So do you want to start with the Blazers, or would you rather start with the Thunder?
I want to start with the Thunder. I want to get that over with.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. Really rough game for the Celtics. We lost that game 119-115. Couple takeaways, but I'll let you go first. What do you got?
That was probably the worst loss of the season. I feel like I've heard that a lot of times.
Yep.
But so what is it in contention with? Probably the Pelicans game.
Pelicans game, maybe the Bulls, but even the Bulls game wasn't that bad.
No, with the Bulls, they were coming off of a good stretch. I think I could have just written that off as they had a bad game.
Right. Yeah, so I'd probably say the Pelicans
Pelicans or Thunder.
Yeah.
And I think this one's worse. I think the Thunder is a worse loss, and I was pretty down for the Pelicans game, so that's really saying something.
Yeah. What's worse? What made it the worst loss of the season? The fact that we actually lost the game, or like later on in the week when the Thunder lost by over 50 points?
Yeah, that really hurt me.
I guess that really made it bad.
Yeah, I think I would have said it was the worst loss before they got absolutely destroyed by the Pacers, because they were on the second night of a back-to-back. They had lost 14 straight games, and they were on the road, obviously, and they're actively trying to lose, and the Celtics still lost that game.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were actively trying to give us the win, like late in the fourth quarter. Like they just kept turning the ball over, and I'm like, guys, like they're literally handing it to us, and we can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, they had 27 turnovers and won the basketball game.
Right. But I mean, the one takeaway that I had from that one is Peyton Pritchard, 28 points. It's an awesome performance. But I was hoping he'd back it up the next game, but I think Brad had other plans. He kind of wanted to experiment with Tremont, which I didn't agree with.
Yeah, he went away from Pritchard for like the next two games. He wasn't that big of a deal against the Spurs either, but that was a great game for him. He's been incredible for the last 2 months, really.
Yeah. When
he gets his time.
Yeah, it was kind of like in the beginning of the season when Pritchard was like this sensation, and we were like, oh my God, like this is who we got in the late first round. This is amazing. And then he got hurt, and then he was kind of like getting back to where he was, in and out of the rotation. But now it kind of seems like he's, getting back up to speed, and he's really coming into form. And Nesmith.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like as a fan base, we don't really give people the time to recover from either COVID this season or they got hurt in Pritchard's case.
Mm-hmm.
So they think that they've hit a wall, but in reality, they just needed a minute to kind of get their legs back.
Yeah, that's something big about this season that people aren't talking about as much with the rookies. First and foremost, Aaron Nesmith. He did not play for a whole year. Like he's been out for longer than most, and then he didn't have this shortened season where he's in the bubble, and then he has to come back right away. He wasn't ready right away, and now he's definitely coming into his own, and we're kind of seeing Danny Ainge kind of hit on that pick, whereas before we were kind of like, should we have taken Sadiq Bey, or should we have taken Desmond Bane and kept him, or we could have went with a lot of other options, but now it's kind of coming to light that he's actually a good option.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say that he was the right choice over Sadiq Bey yet.
Yeah, I really
Sadiq
do
Bey's
like
still
Sadiq
been
Bey.
great. Yeah, we like Sadiq Bey coming out of the draft, but you're right. He's done a really good job. It really looks like the game's not necessarily slowing down. He's just finding his place within it. And I think when he finds, or when the game actually starts to slow down for him, we could see a really good basketball player, and this could end up being a great pick, one that people wrote off already. So
yeah.
I think he's great. I think the way that he's played is really, really awesome and looks bright for the future.
Yeah, I mean, in the last 3 games, he scored over 15 points every single game. He played 31 minutes against Charlotte, scored 15 and 9, and then against the Spurs, 16 and 6, and then 16 and 4 against the Blazers. And he only played 20 minutes against the Blazers.
Really, was that?
Yeah,
few?
20 minutes, and then he had 16 points, 4 rebounds, and only 1 turnover. But he was hustling. He kind of was the reason we didn't get one of the loose balls, though. When the ball got tipped back court, I think it was Cantor. Maybe it was Cantor, but Pritchard basically had the vision of the ball, and then Aaron Nesmith comes out of nowhere and just like throws his body into the ball, and then it gets tipped out of bounds, and then obviously it's Blazers ball. But I love the effort that he puts out there, and Marcus Smart gave him a shout out on Twitter. I think he said, I definitely want to shout out Jayson Tatum, but Aaron Nesmith definitely deserves a shout out for the way he's been playing. And I think that was a huge confidence boost to Aaron. And it was actually his only like on Twitter too.
Yeah, the Celtics don't win that Spurs game without Nesmith. Like, not a chance. He made so many big plays, especially late.
Yeah.
He's making it very hard for Brad to take him out of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many times where I'm looking at I'm watching the game and I'm like, oh, who is that? Oh, Nesmith. Oh, yeah, let's go. Like, I'm getting hyped for this rookie, and he's honestly giving us hope for like our bench squad, because I mean, on the last pod we were talking about, I mean, I wasn't talking about it, but you guys were talking about how bad this bench has been and how we need them in order to be a contender. And like right as we're talking about it, and I think that kind of happens every week where we'll shit on somebody and all of a sudden Jeff Teague has 28 points.
Yeah, that goes all the way back to him. Yeah. The only 2 good games that he had, we went at him
right after
like a day
slander.
before.
Yeah, I think it was the same day of the pod.
Very possible.
But on to the next game, Charlotte. Definitely better than when we played Charlotte last week, where they got the best of us. We were playing a lot of lazy ball, really sloppy, but we were able to win this one this time around. Not too much to say about that game, to be honest, though.
Well, I kind of do, because I'm worried about it, even though we lost, or even though we won. Because they got off to a huge lead, they being the Celtics, in the first quarter, and then second half didn't really go as well. But I think the fact that we won still says a lot. I think against the Hornets above all other teams, really, is an example of how well the bench plays.
Yeah.
Because the way that they've been playing is that they send out a ton of guys who are just like 6'8", and like around 6'8". So to compensate for that lack of size, anytime somebody drives, they just collapse on them. So then the person driving has to kick it to the outside, and if those guys aren't hitting shots, then you lose that game. And that's what happened when we lost to them before. We went into ISO ball, and then really they just turned the ball over. The Celtics turned the ball over, and that's how you lose against the Hornets. And this time they made the right play, leaned on their teammates a little bit more, and they hit enough shots to win the game.
Yeah, I think that that played into a lot of what John Corrales was saying about Tatum and ISO ball, and how he kind of just needs to slow it down and stray away from ISO, because it definitely has a negative effect on the rest of the guys. It affects their rhythm. Guys like Evan Fournier, like you can see that he's less effective out there when Tatum and Brown are playing ISO.
I get the mindset. I really do. I
No,
understand
totally.
if you keep passing it to your teammates and they're bricking shots that you know you could make,
Yeah.
then why wouldn't you just take them?
And we saw the very next game, against the Spurs, Tatum can do iso ball and it can work, but at what cost? I think that's the trade-off that we have.
Yeah,
to
if he's going to shoot like that,
Mm-hmm.
ISO all you want, but that's not what's going to happen on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah. If you score 60 points every game, oh my gosh. Do whatever you want. You can have you can have my car, you can have my house. Just score 60 a game.
Yep, you will not hear a single complaint from me if you're putting up numbers like that. But that being the reason I'd be nervous about that game is just because they let that lead go down pretty towards the end.
Yeah. Good, yeah.
I wasn't so concerned towards the end, but I was uncomfortable with how close it was getting after they were stretched it out to such a big lead. So
yeah, I think it was like a hangover from losing to the Thunder, where I was like, okay, this is a lot better. And then that first quarter, like you said, I think Brown had 20 and we had like 39, and I was like, okay, we're back. That was just a fluke game. It's okay. And then it turned out to dwindle a little bit, which has happened almost every game this season.
Yeah,
so I'm not surprised. It's just a matter of we didn't collapse completely and lose. We ended up, maintaining the lead, growing it a little bit, and then ending up finishing out the game.
Yeah, there are so many games that look exactly the same for the Celtics, and every time I turn them on, I let myself get disappointed when it happens.
Yeah, I could put like a timer on a tweet to just send it out every game around second or third quarter. Like, Celtics were up early, lost it. Now they're coming back, and then another tweet timer where it's like, slow start, came back, but now we're losing again.
Yep.
It's the same story every time.
Exactly.
But in that Spurs game, different outcome, where Tatum just unbelievable, man. He's just fantastic at basketball.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this game other than the fact that Tatum just went off, and I was just just sitting there enjoying that game. But it was close to being one of the worst games that we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, we were getting blown out in the first half, like 77-48.
Yep.
And we went on a 95-62 run. Come back. MVP Tatum at it again. 60 points, 20 of 37, 5 of 7 from 3, 15 of 17 from the line. And that's actually one thing I want to talk about this week. He was attacking the rim again, which he kind of does it in stretches where like he'll have a 5-game stretch. He'll go to the line maybe like 35 times, and then the next week he'll go 6. But this was a really good stretch where he was attacking the rim a lot, and he was at the free throw line 9.2 times per game, which is up from his normal 5.3 on the season. So almost double the amount of free throws.
Yeah, when he's driving to the hoop and looking for and going through contact instead of avoiding it, you can see the differences. His numbers are unbelievable, beyond MVP scoring numbers if he does that on a consistent basis. And I think that's something to look for next season when he has a full body of work. If he ends up kind of going in that direction for more than those, like you said, 5-game stretches, he has a chance to be like near 30 points a game. But we haven't seen that over a long period of time. I just think if he kind of goes into the season next year with that mindset, then he can be among the best in the league. Easy.
Yeah, easily. Is it possible for Tatum to get a most improved player? Because I would say no because of where he was last year versus where he is now. It's kind of like numbers wise, there's not too much of a jump. But if you look at the way he's been attacking the rim and his shot profile and, team success is, I guess, it kind of plays into it. But I think Tatum has made a huge jump in the way he plays, and, his ability as a playmaker has definitely improved. So I think he should at least get a bid.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to even get an honorable mention for that, but I do agree that he's gotten a lot better. I think maybe that February stretch he had last year kind of undercuts what he's doing this year too.
Yeah.
but I think as a playmaker, he's doing that. That's where he's really improved, because he's demanding so much attention now. Especially, you can see it this week, how many people that they have, or opposing defenses have to stop him. He is the center of all of their game planning, and then when he can still keep his head on straight and make the right play without sacrificing a lot of his scoring output, then that's where you get MVP into the MVP conversation. So you might not see it on the box score as much if those players aren't hitting their shots, but as you're watching it, you can see that he's gotten significantly better.
Yeah, like just watching him as a player, playing in these like big moments. Like we saw it against Steph Curry. He outdueled him, which was incredible. And then he has a huge game against the Timberwolves, huge game against the Spurs. And like every time he made a shot, you're like, whew, like this guy is just dirty.
Yeah,
this guy's
he is
disgusting.
Like recently, he's just been going off so much where you just have to sit back and enjoy it. It's tough to really watch it and analyze what's going on. It's just like I just want to watch.
Yeah, I just want to watch that ball go through the hoop.
Yep.
But let's jump over the Portland game because that's going to take us some time. It's taken me some time to decompress and think about it. But I think that was, I don't want to take away from the Blazers and the offensive show that they put on yesterday. But I think that game was ruined by the referees.
Absolutely. I'm not even going to go ahead and say that the Celtics would have won that game hands down if the refs make the correct calls, because they made a wrong call against the Blazers too.
They made 2 or 3 actually.
Yeah, Pritchard getting the offensive foul call. That wasn't an offensive foul.
Yeah, Tatum should have been called for a charge on Lillard after he made a pass.
Yeah, and then Fournier hits a 3 off of that. So I'm not going to say that the Celtics win. I just would have liked to see how it played out naturally, and it was on pace to be a great finish, which games against Portland usually are. And we were robbed of that because they consistently made the wrong call, and that's really unfortunate. And I think it just dilutes what are the NBA product in general. So.
Yeah, I think as an NBA fan, like if you just like watching basketball, that game was like one of the best games you've seen all year until the last 3 minutes where you're like,
you can't defend it. People who criticize the NBA kind of go to that first. How there's so many timeouts and game stoppages, and if you're watching the Celtics game last night against Portland, and you have nothing to say.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to that the first missed call. Notable missed call, I guess you could say, because there was a lot. But Jayson Tatum drives, goes up for a layup, high off the glass, and Tristan Thompson, gets the rebound, put back, and dunks it. But they call offensive basket interference, and before the Celtics can even call a timeout to challenge it, CJ McCollum's like at the ref, like begging for the ball, trying to get it inbound, and Tatum's trying to call a timeout. They're not paying attention to him. Brad Stevens is pissed off, and now, Blazers get up the court. They stop the play for a brief second, and then they say, "No, sorry, you can't challenge it." So then the Blazers then go on a 7-0 run, something like that.
Yeah.
So we were supposed to be up 1 with that Tristan Thompson dunk, but instead we were then down 7.
Yeah, I don't blame the Blazers, obviously, for trying to hurry up, because any team would do the same thing. But the ref's excuse afterwards, or explanation of what they did, was just wrong, because 1, Brad was talking to another official,
right.
And 2, there are photos going around. We actually posted on Instagram about it, that Tatum's calling a timeout before CJ even has the ball to inbound it. So their explanation was wrong.
Right.
And they stuck to it. They had a chance to correct their mistake, and they just doubled down. And it makes no sense in why they're going to do that. If they're going to stop the game all the time and to try to make the right call, you might as well just make the right call. Like, actually do that.
Yeah, and like we'll get into it in a little bit with like the length of the reviews, but like if you're gonna review something for 6 minutes on one end, but then not even review anything on the other end, like you could have taken 3 minutes to review the Marcus Smart foul and 3 minutes to review the offensive basket interference, and that would be fine. But the fact that it took so long at the end of the game for the other foul, and they didn't even take a second to even look around to see if someone was calling a timeout.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd.
It's absurd.
That the way they handled that, and I hope that the NBA kind of disciplines those guys in some way, or it might cost them some sort of a playoff game.
Yeah, well,
which I know refs want. But
that's the thing, though. The refs that were there, I think they may have had like a combined. I saw something on Twitter. It was like 5 playoff games out of all 3 of them, and
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like they were inexperienced and they were kind of just thrown in there last minute because I think someone was sick or I saw something getting thrown around. But I mean,
that was bad. But
it's absurdity.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on the officials entirely. There were a couple points from that game that I wanted to touch on. I got nervous that the Celtics were going to lose this game when we could see that Kemba's injury was going to keep him out for multiple games.
Yeah.
Especially against the Trailblazers, I think running a pick and roll against them is huge, and you need an elite point guard to do that, especially if Kanter's in their lineup. So Kemba not being there kind of takes that away or makes it so you can't expose Kanter as much as you normally would.
Yep.
And that takes away a lot of points, if I'm being honest. Kanter wasn't going to stop. No one on that team was going to stop a pick and roll if Kanter's out there. But also, I know the Trailblazers were lights out, shooting the ball all game. I was kind of expecting both teams to slow down, but no one really did. I still don't understand why the Celtics defense is so uncharacteristically bad this season. They had a problem. The Celtics had a problem with the high pick and roll against the Trailblazers too. Their rotations off of that high pick and roll, just they scramble a lot, but on those rotations they were going so slow, and then these guys were just getting open shots. And if you're playing the Trailblazers, a team that has a lot of guys who can hit threes, you're going to see 129 points in regulation. And I don't really know why this has been an all-season thing. I would have figured that they would have, set themselves straight a long time ago. But here we are, end of the season, 7th seed, still having the same problems that we came into the year with. So that's my little rant about their defense.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the issue is on defense. I think it's definitely effort from the Jays. I think, Jaylen Brown right now, his ankle is definitely bothering him. It's something that we should probably talk about and be concerned about to some degree. But everybody else, like Kemba always has his flaws on defense, right? And if we're talking about the Jays having, effort lapses, that's another thing. Marcus Smart, he'll always bring it, right?
For sure.
Tristan Thompson will always bring it.
Absolutely.
Who else is going to bring it all the time?
Aaron Nesmith.
I would say, other than those 3 guys, you're probably going to get effort from Grant Williams and a little bit from Peyton Pritchard. But Grant Williams isn't going to be scoring 16 points a game, and Peyton Pritchard you can't necessarily rely on. So we're going to have to figure out where we're getting our defensive intensity, and we're going to have to be there every single possession. And I just, like you said, it's been spotty.
Yeah, I think when the bench isn't playing well, a lot of our starters let other people's play impact their play. And I think that's been a problem the whole time. The only time that I really saw that not be the case was against the Hornets this past game, because I thought Jaylen just let that roll off his shoulder and really played well. But yeah, that's been they've been so inconsistent effort wise, and it's really tough to watch.
Yeah, I think it's like what Jaylen Brown and Brad Stevens always talk about is they need to bring a sense of urgency,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just so inconsistent that we don't even have a real identity for this team. Like we can't hang our hat on we're number 2 in defense and this is how we are all the time. It's not like that this year.
Nope.
But let's jump into our MVP of the week. I know I have my MVP of the week. Same guy as always, Jayson Tatum.
You drop a 60-point game and you're gonna win MVP of the week, but
gotta be
there are honorable mentions that we
100%
should go through.
But real quick, just for the week, Jayson Tatum, 19, 35, 60, 33. He scored 128 points in the 3-game stretch. Most ever by a Celtic.
Yep.
Amazing.
He is going after all of Bird's records.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at being one of the greatest Celtics ever if they can kind of get a team around him.
I definitely think, hot take,
Okay,
I think
I'm ready.
he's the most talented Celtic ever.
Wow.
I think...
Wow.
Sorry, old heads. No, I think... Everybody always knows... Like, everybody says this, but, you know, the 70s learned from the 60s, the 80s learned from the 70s. Like, everybody will eventually be better. So, like, the athleticism and everything that goes into, you know, being an NBA player today is worlds better than it was in the 60s. We know this. So to say that he is the most talented, you know, athlete that Boston has ever had, or the Celtics have ever had, I think that is an easy statement to make. On top, like, but I would say as a scorer, as a historical, you know, player, as a Celtic, he's not there yet, but he will be, 100%.
Yeah, that's possible. He's on that trajectory for sure. I'm just not ready to go there yet. Not ready to go there. Ask me in a couple of years.
Who is your most talented Celtic ever?
There's Paul Pierce and then there's Kevin Garnett. I love Kevin Garnett so much. And then I'm gonna exclude the guys from the 60s because for what you just listed. But I'm gonna go recent history. I'm gonna say Kevin Garnett over him, right? Just because he was an MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, elite scorer. Like he's all around. I'm still giving. Yeah, I'm still going with Kevin Garnett. And then there's still Larry Bird still would have something to say about that.
Yeah, my comparison of Jayson Tatum has always been Larry Bird and Paul Pierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's a good way to put it.
So if you're saying that Paul Pierce or maybe, you know, Larry Bird are, you know, more talented than, well, he's both of them. So
yeah,
put him at the top. No, we'll probably have this conversation in a couple of years.
Yeah, but if it's not Jayson Tatum for the week, who do you have?
Aaron Nesmith all the way, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
He didn't miss from 3 yesterday.
Yeah, he's been lighting it up from 3, and not only that, he's like we've said, he's hustling a lot, but it's a little bit more controlled most of the time.
Yeah. His body is not controlled, but his explosions are
at least
a little
directed.
bit less. Yeah, it's directed now. It's not like a shotgun blast. It's more like a rifle.
Yeah. So I wouldn't question that pick at all. He's been great. He's exactly what the Celtics needed. So I hope he keeps that up and keeps improving because as I'm watching him, I think he has a lot of room to improve, and it looks like he's going to get there in short order. And next year, G League being around, everything, once he gets some more reps, he could come back to the NBA if they choose to go that route and be a really, really great player.
Do you think that with this rise of Aaron Nesmith, do you kind of think that Romeo Langford might not be on the move, but have less of a role, and therefore kind of he might get the boot?
I don't think he's going to get the boot. I think there are other players that are going to go before him. Like, if there was a trade, maybe he'd be included in that, because I think that Romeo still has more to offer than Nesmith, and if they both reach their potential, then Romeo is the better option there.
Right.
So if a team wants to bet on that and it gives us a player that to solidify the bench, then yeah, I could see that happening. But if we're talking about the first people off of the roster, like Shemi and Carson Edwards are at the top of that list.
Right. Yeah.
So.
I think I'm referring more to like when we go into the playoffs and we have this, shaved down 7-8 man roster. Naismith is probably going to be on that, and I don't think Romeo will be.
Well, it's just a fight for that 8th spot, though, right? Because we have the starting 5 plus Fournier and Tristan Thompson. So it's really just going to be
and then
one
Pritchard,
or
right?
maybe 2 guys. So and Pritchard's going to get a lot of that too. So Nesmith come playoff time is going to be a tough person to put in the lineup. The only place that he would have is if he's coming in for Fournier, if Fournier's having a tough game.
Right.
Or they need an energy boost or something like that.
Yeah, Smart's got 3 fouls or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's fair to say. But you want to take a break, come back and talk about Mike Gorman?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll take a break.
Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are the unquestioned 1 and 2 on this team, but can these 2 guys be the 2 leaders moving forward?
I don't think so. Again, I think we need someone right now who's 28 to 30, who's been around the league. And I thought Kemba might be that guy, but he's just been constantly plagued with injuries. He's never been given the opportunity or had the opportunity to play 5, 6, 7 games in a row. It's always can't play the second night of a back-to-back. Some little tweaking. Now he's got a hip problem. He's not going to play tonight. So he's been kind of snake-bitten from an injury point of view. And I think they were looking at him as that presence of a 28 to 30-year-old guy who's been around and can keep the younger guys not so much in check because I don't think they're out of control, but just take the responsibility off of them for being the leaders of the team and step forward and be the leader himself. And again, we just don't have that guy. That's where I come from.
All right, so where do we start with Mike Gorman's quote? So he doesn't think that the Jays are necessarily the leaders that we need to compete. Yeah, what's your opinion on this? I have mine.
Okay, yeah, I'll kick us off on this one. And it's tough to make this argument after Jayson Tatum's 60-point game, but I'm going to say that Gorman's probably right.
Wow.
Yes, I am. And I saw him getting roasted on Twitter recently, so I might be in the minority thinking this. But I am in no way saying that the Jays aren't good enough to be those leaders. That's not what I'm saying, obviously. Obviously Tatum at least is good enough to lead a championship team. But like I said earlier, I think that they kind of let their teammates' play affect how they play for the rest of the game, and their body language. Their teammates play off of that, and then they just kind of get in this cycle of playing terribly. So, and I think Danny knows that too. I think Danny would agree with him because that's also kind of what Kemba was here to do. He just hasn't strung together enough games, or he's just not healthy enough to be that vocal leader and the guy leading by example. You need a guy who can do both of those things, and they don't have it. I don't think they have the ability to do it right now. They're young. They're in their early 20s. Of course, that's not a huge thing to say. It's not horrible, an indictment on who they are as players and as people, but give them a couple of years and they'll be those guys. Just right now, they're not.
Right.
What do you think?
You just took my point. I mean, they're so young, right? Where in a normal situation, are you expecting a 23, 24-year-old to be your leader? Probably not. Unless, under some circumstances, maybe. But I just don't see in any other situation where, yeah, these guys are our leaders and they're supposed to be our leaders, and if they're not, then, well, ship them out. I think they've been through a lot in their first few years. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals with different teams every year. Like they've had new teams, new stars. They've had to play under Kyrie. Jaylen's played with IT. Now they're with Kemba. It's hard to, if they had played with Kyrie every single year, and this is year 3 with them, it's Jaylen, Kyrie, and Jayson. I would say, okay, if they're not leading by now, maybe we do need to make a change. But the fact that they've had to be a leader, but then step back and then maybe be a leader, or maybe they're on the trading block, like there's been so much up in the air that they're getting their experience now, and we just have to be patient. Like, I know we said this last year and the year before that, but these guys are so young, so they will get there. But they're not there yet. But I do think Gorman's comments have some weight. I think that we should definitely consider that in the long term, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, Danny also brought in Tristan Thompson with that same objective. He was supposed to be that championship guy, or the guy with the championship experience, to come in and kind of right the ship. But what's happening here is the Jays don't have the ability to take the team when they're going through a rough patch to correct it. Whenever we see the team struggling, it happens it's not a minute-to-minute thing. It's not a game-to-game. It's a week-to-week problem. When the Celtics go through tough stretches, they are prolonged stretches where they just can't get it together. So I think once they figure it out and they can kind of motivate their teammates, or at least kind of lead the team, then that won't be a problem. But right now we're seeing this chaotic season in part because of their inability to lead other people.
Is it their inability to lead other people, or is it, like you said, in this season, it's just so different where, like, can anyone really lead in this situation?
Yeah,
where,
it's
your star player had COVID, and then you were making roster moves, and then the guy you brought in gets COVID. Another guy you bring in, Tristan Thompson, he gets COVID. Like, it's a rough year, and to expect Jayson Tatum to, one, play at a high level and score 50, 60 points here and there, but also be a leader when he was out for a couple of weeks. He's trying to get back, endurance wise. He has an inhaler for every game. Like, he's going through his own stuff, so you can't necessarily expect him to get everybody else to buy in, because you're on the Boston Celtics. You should be buying in already.
Yeah, it's a big ask for sure, and I think a lot of it can be credited to this horrible season, but I don't think it can be whittled down to just that.
Right.
I think they share some blame.
Yeah. I think another point is I didn't really mention Jaylen Brown, so I think that's actually something to think about, where I actually didn't think about it because I didn't necessarily see him as the leader. So maybe that is something we should be looking at.
Yeah, if we're talking about vocally, Jaylen actually probably is the right choice for that. He's more of a vocal leader, even though he is a really good on-the-court player as well. But they can't really figure out. There are two pieces of a puzzle that just aren't really working together, because Tatum is leading by example on the court more so than Jaylen, and Jaylen is leading with his words.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think, is it possible that they can be co-leaders, and then that one leads by example on the court because he's so freaking good, and the other one leads in the locker room because he's so freaking smart?
Yeah, I'd like to believe that's possible, and it could. That could actually happen, because there's like the Heat have Udonis Haslem kind of thing, and that would be a very different situation. But to an extreme, a guy who's not on the court at all.
Yeah. Haslem's not dropping 25 a game.
Yeah, and is leading this team in some way. So, like, it's possible. It's just Haslem's been there for a really long time, has this established respect in the organization, and he's just an older guy, has more wisdom to him, and I don't think the Jays have that yet. So down the road, I see that could be a thing, but right now and for the next few years, I don't see that, and I cannot imagine Danny's plan was to have two guys in their early 20s being the sole leaders of this franchise.
Yeah, I don't know if this was the hope, a couple years ago, but I think the hope was that Al Horford stayed, and he was that locker room veteran guy. He was supposed to be that KG, the anchor that kind of, brings everybody in, like he's the dad on the team, and he'll get everybody riled up in a different way than KG would, but he's still that veteran presence. And that's kind of why I wanted them to bring him back at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I secretly
Fournier,
wanted him. But, I secretly wanted him back too. And it's tough to say that he would have been that leader because the last year he was here was miserable.
Right.
But I'm just thinking that Kyrie outweighed it, and that's not something I'm going to hold against him.
That season's an anomaly.
Yeah.
But then again, I think this season is also an anomaly. So, like, how many anomalies do we really have before it's a pattern?
It's getting tough to make that argument.
Yeah. You want to jump into next week's games?
Yes, absolutely.
So we have the Magic, Bulls, and Heat.
Okay.
I'm gonna go win against the Magic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we botched that like we did the Thunder. I'm also gonna go win against the Bulls. I don't think we botched that again like we did last time. But then I think I'm gonna go with a loss against the Heat.
Okay.
I'm kind of in between though because we do play the Heat, back to back. So I want to say they'll win the first, lose the second, but I'm gonna go with lose the first, win the second.
Yeah, it's that 1 o'clock game, so you might be onto something.
Yeah, I'm always wary about the midday games. Like 1-3. No, we lost. Sorry. I'd like to see some stats on that.
So you're going 2-1.
Yeah,
with the loss being against the Heat. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is going to be the first time that I predict a losing record for a week.
Wow.
It's got a little bit of a caveat to that too. So I agree with you that we're going to beat the Magic. They have the worst roster, or amongst the worst rosters in the league. If you just stop their guard play and Terrence Ross and Cole Anthony, then they have nothing.
Cole Anthony has been playing very well lately.
He has.
I will give him credit.
He has been playing well. But Smart should be there. He'll take care of that. I would assume that Jaylen's not going to play. I'd be surprised if Kemba plays too.
Yeah.
And usually when we're missing 2 of our top 3 guys, I would vote against the Celtics. But that one being Jayson Tatum. Mm-hmm. That's my guess. I hope. Then I'd feel comfortable about chalking that up as a win. So I think if you stop those 2 guys out on the perimeter for them, and then there should be no problem. And it's an Evan Fournier revenge game.
Yeah, I was about to say, would you have any problem giving Tatum the night off along with Brown? Kind of be like, hey, you guys collided. We'll give you the night off. Evan Fournier, here's the keys.
Yes, I would have a problem with that.
Go kill your old team.
I would have a problem with that because it would be fun it's fun in theory, but he can't do that.
Yeah, I guess it is fun in theory, but because of the fact that we're now the 7 seed, I think it's probably best that we try to win every game from this point on.
It's time to look at the standings, but yeah, I think that's an important game too because the Heat play the Mavericks on the same night, so that can just bring us right back into the 6 seed.
Yeah, this is a huge stretch. I mean, we're within the last 7 games of the season?
Yeah, last 7.
Yeah, so almost every game from here on out will have like some sort of like daily impact to the standings. We know this, but we play the Heat twice, and we are right next to them in the standings, so it's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried at this moment where the Celtics and Heat are. relative to each other because we play them back-to-back times. So it's going to come down to that either way. But just to go over real quick about what my predictions are. Yeah. So I'm going to win against the Magic and then 2 straight losses against the Bulls and the Heat. And I say the loss against the Bulls because I'm assuming we're going to be injured. So if the Celtics are fully healthy, have all 3 guys, then we win that game. But the fact that we probably won't, and the way that the Celtics kind of don't play together on a consistent basis, I'm going to say they're going to drop that too. One that they should win, that they're going to lose. And Daniel Tice will remain undefeated against the Boston Celtics, unfortunately.
Fair.
And the Heat, same kind of reasoning that I have against the Bulls. I would expect us to be a little bit healthier. I'm hoping Jaylen will be around for that game. But that's I think that game more than anything is going to come down to how well Rob plays. Obviously, we're going to need to stop their guards in Dragic and Nunn. But Rob and Bam is going to be a huge matchup. That I think if you can slow down Bam and everything that he does for them, then that's going to be the keys to victory. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
That's going to be a big test game for Rob. Going up against Bam, because we saw what happened against Embiid, and he was attacked kind of early. Where if he falls for some, like the signature, up fake from Embiid, like if he falls for something like that on Bam, 2 times in a row.
If he gets in foul trouble, the Celtics are screwed.
Yeah, we are screwed, and that can't happen.
Yeah,
it can't.
I like our wing defense, so I'm okay with Jimmy.
Definitely.
And if we can stop their guards, then, or at least slow them down, then I feel comfortable. But I'm not ready to say that Rob is going to win that matchup with Bam yet. So I'm worried about that. And they're playing well. The Heat are playing well right now.
They're playing with a sense of urgency.
Yeah, they're in the same boat, obviously. So I think they just have they have themselves together a little bit more than the Celtics do.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler Hero is having a rough year, and I think Duncan Robinson too. But I wish that happened. I wish that happened when we were playing them in the playoffs. Like he had to have the best series of his life, and now he's regressed to a fraction of himself.
I've blocked that out. I don't want to go live through that again.
But Jimmy Butler likes to play well against us.
That's true. That's true.
I'd say it's fair to say that we'd lose that game.
So this week it's going to come down to what happens against the Bulls.
Yeah,
it's going to separate us.
Because
I had a very bad
we lose
week.
That game. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see us losing to the Thunder or the Bulls last time, but here we are. My past week was awful. I was 1-3, so.
I was not on the show last week.
We won't count it for either of us.
No, you can count it. I was 0-4. No, I got the Spurs
Mike was
game.
Good, though.
I got the Spurs and Hornets right. I was 2 for 2. I had us going 4-0.
You had us going 4-0.
Yeah, had us on a little win streak for a little bit.
Yeah, putting down games or saying we're gonna win because we should win them is a very dangerous game with this year's Celtics. So.
Yeah, anytime I say that, I should probably switch it to a loss.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Do you want to close up the show with our final thoughts now? I loved your take last week, so do you want to start it off again?
Thank you. Yeah, anytime I can kind of trash on the Knicks, I'm going to take it.
We got Nick slander again?
No Knicks slander this week, and it might just be because we're coming off of this Trailblazers game, but I kind of wanted to vent about the officiating of the season.
Go for it.
Yes, I think it's beyond. Yeah, it's beyond just how it impacts the Celtics. I think it's how it impacts the league. the way that the officiating has been handled this whole year, whether it be just incorrect calls or what they're trying to focus on, is really hurting everybody, players, fans, the entire NBA community. It's really difficult to watch. Where if we're talking about just the landing space argument, that has turned into offensive players taking advantage of it, and now you're talking about having to protect the defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think it's incredible. They're blatantly abusing this rule. Offensive players are. Mm-hmm. And nobody seems to care. They're just accepting it for what it is, and we're going to have to fix it in some capacity in the off season or when they can. But after watching the Trailblazers game, what really stood out to me was the time they take for reviews.
My God.
It was
egregious yesterday.
Yeah, the last 3 minutes of the game took like a half an hour.
They sucked the energy out of that.
Yeah, the NBA had a game that they wanted going exactly the way that they wanted it to go. Mm-hmm. Down to the wire, superstars battling, and the refs just took it away.
Yep.
I wasn't even mad after the loss. I was just like, you know what? I'm just happy it's over. Yeah. The way that it was going. They got so many calls wrong back to back to back, and it ruined a game that I've loved watching for a really long time, and it just it's horrible to watch. I hope that they fix it soon. But yeah, that's my officiating rant.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, like we talked about it earlier, it didn't need to. They didn't need to make themselves, part of the game like that.
Yeah.
They didn't need to take the joy out of watching the game and just replace it with 6 minutes of replay just to find out that, Marcus
you're going to take that long to replay and then still get the call wrong?
And how I just don't understand how he was ejected after a flagrant one with no prior, technical fouls. It didn't make sense
that's
to me.
Actually, I should thank them. I learned a new rule. You can get ejected with one technical.
Mm-hmm. And the explanation was bogus.
No, the explanation was just wrong.
Yeah.
What they said, like if that was true, was correct, but it wasn't. But okay.
It was like the Robin Hood CEO's response to the whole, Reddit stocks. Like, if it was true, it would have been the right thing to say, but it wasn't. So.
Yeah.
You look bad.
Bringing up Robin Hood again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have on the officiating. What is your final thought?
My final thought is LeBron James.
Of course.
I think it's very interesting that, a few months ago he was all on board with the play-in tournament. I think it's a great idea. It's great for the league. And then the minute his team is, in the conversation of playing in the tournament, he's like, "Oh, this is egregious. Someone needs to be fired. This is ridiculous." So I think it's kind of hypocritical, and I think it's silly of him to say someone should be fired for, coming up with an idea that kind of brings a little bit more of excitement to the bottom of the standings and a reason to play. I personally like the idea. I think it should have been, tinkered with a little bit more before they rolled it out. But I think that LeBron is complaining a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's true. He's acting now like he's superior to all these other franchises and other teams that are usually at the bottom of the standings. He thought it was a cool concept when he could just watch these lesser teams kind of dance their way around and try to get a playoff spot. But now he got injured and will have to actually try for a game. Afterwards, he's just like, no, this doesn't work for me. Do it again. Mm-hmm. So that's really annoying. I don't necessarily love the play-in tournament. Mm-hmm. I do like how it makes the regular season more important in terms of getting a top 6 seed opposed to a top 8 seed. I understand where they're coming from, but I do think that if you're the 7 seed in a conference that's a really annoying thing. Like you can see the Mavericks getting pissed about it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But LeBron coming out now is just not a good look.
Yeah, but I mean, he's such a great PR guy because it's like he's setting himself up. Like, and this was only half of my LeBron rant, by the way. The other half is that, he gets injured for the first time in his career, and he says, I'm never going to be 100% again. Like, I understand that you're a 36-year-old who just got a high ankle sprain, which is a serious injury. It's hard to come back from, but Gordon Hayward snapped his freaking leg on TV, and he's basically 100%. He just got injured in another freak accident, but like to say, I'm not going to be 100% ever again is just, you're setting yourself up for, well, if we lose, I have an excuse, but if we win, I'm the best ever.
He's the master of doing it.
He's the master of doing it. He does it every year, and we eat it up. We just eat it up.
No one calls him out for it either. I don't know. I don't know why.
That is my LeBron rant, though. That's my final thought.
I think it's a good one, and I think that it might piss off a couple of Lakers fans, but I'm here for that.
How many Lakers fans listen to us, though?
So many.
It's nice to think that the competition listens to us, get some insight, but I think it's a great point to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, repost, review our stuff. We'd love to hear your feedback. Follow us on Twitter at Celtics Journal and Instagram at The Celtics Journal. I'm Adam Kemp, here with Geoff Kidger. It's been fun. See you next time.